My name is Brian Keel. I'm co-executive director of Farmers for Free Trade. Farming's much more than a profession. It's really a way of life. It's a culture, it's a heritage. And for farm families, it's about not just keeping your farm alive for yourself, but being able to pass it on to your kids and your grandkids.
I was born and raised in Shelby County, Ohio. In 1983, my wife Deb and I started out on our own. We had a pickup truck, a 2-year-old daughter, and $2,500. From there, we built this farm that we're on here now, up to 560 acres that we own and operate in west central Ohio. But between then, I spent 30 years with the United States Department of Agriculture, administering federal farm programs to farmers in the area. And to coin a phrase, a watershed moment, if you will, for agriculture was under the Obama administration, the Waters of the U.S. rule.
The work of all those giants who came before me to support our natural resources and to help all Americans get out into the great outdoors.
Essentially said that any waters that are on even private property could be regulated by the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency.
I think that Waters of the U.S. took on a life of its own. It became this symbol of government overreach and concern. As a matter of principle, we don't want government coming on our property. We don't want government regulating us. That's a pretty strong ethic in rural America, very heartfelt.
Our nation was founded, settled, and built by farmers.
When Trump very astutely said, I'll use an executive order to rescind for the waters of the U.S., that resonated with farmers. You know, on election night, I said, all right, the status quo is no longer acceptable. Let's shake some things up with government overreach. Let's shake up relationships with the EPA. Let's just shake it up. Hey, you know what? This guy might just be all right. There was something else he did that became much darker.
We're going to stand up to China, withdraw from TPP, which is another disaster.
He withdrew from the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, where 11 countries plus the U.S. had essentially surrounded China. China is a bad actor.
All of those countries working together in a group sent a very clear signal to China that America was the counterweight. And that was important for so many reasons. Number one, huge export markets. The American Farm Bureau estimated it would put $4 billion every year into the farm economy if we entered into that deal.
But Trump withdrew because he had to go it alone. He had to go it alone.
The United States has been taken advantage of for many years by many countries, but nobody's done it like China.
The president is very, very good at playing the victim and then imposing that victimhood on those that he's speaking to, whatever the group is. He'll use what I call subjective descriptors as unfair, ripped off, cheated.
Trump has said, I'm going to fix it for you. And he says everyone else is corrupt. All of these politicians are a part of the problem. They're part of the conspiracy. He presents himself as the best version, the best example of America winning. And because he is such a winner, he will win for America. And it'll be easy for him to do.
And what we did in 2016, it's never been done before, and we're going to do it, I think, again in 2020.
He hasn't provided a plan. One of the things that Trump does repeatedly is he uses a rhetorical strategy that's very common in propaganda called Glittering Generalities, which says, it's gonna be so great, it's gonna be perfect, you're gonna love it. I'll tell you my plan later. And so you believe him that he has a plan, and a lot of times you'll sort of self-persuade. So you'll agree that his plan is the greatest because it's the plan that you would do. So you provide him with that plan in your head, and he can get away with not providing one at all.
Beginning in January through the middle of the year in 2018, the administration picked a fight with, I believe, every country on the planet short of Israel. And the way they picked that fight was through punitive tariffs.
President Trump's chief trade advisor, Peter Navarro, said, no, I don't think other countries will retaliate against us. We're a large market. They can't afford to lose us. Well, everybody did retaliate against us, and it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that they would.
They retaliated by imposing their own tariffs, import tariffs, on our agriculture products, which then left our sales collapse around the world, which then left our pricing collapse. So now all of a sudden, we're not competitive. They built these trading relationships over decades with all of these countries. We developed those markets in the Pacific Rim so that we were bringing dollars back by the boatload. And those were going right into rural communities, right into the hardware store, right to the feed store, right to the fuel store, and into local schools through property taxes.
I think some farmers were on board at the beginning, but there's a lot of people who are losing faith, and I think there's a lot of realization that this trade strategy of President Trump's is really decimating the heartland.
Placing very massive tariffs on China. And just so you understand, these tariffs are paid for largely by China.
You know, one of the things that is mind-boggling is the president continues to say that China or other countries that we've applied tariffs on, import taxes, that those countries are paying the tariffs. An unsuspecting public who isn't knee-deep in politics buys that. The American people are paying those import taxes. And every time the president stands up and says that, I want to kick my foot through the TV because people are buying that. They buy it.
The people that pay the tariffs are the U.S. businesses that are importing products. You're paying the extra cost, and you're paying that cost to the U.S. Treasury. It's the government interfering in a market and creating inefficiencies in the market.
You know, let me give you an example of how Trump has proceeded to ravage through the American people. It goes like this. People were frustrated before President Trump. It was like, say you've got termites in your house, okay? You've hired 2, 3 exterminators to come in over the years, and they all have pretty much the same procedures, the same chemicals, but you know, it's still there. It's still bugging you, to coin a phrase. So this new guy comes into town. He's got new white trucks, gold lettering, of course. He claims he's got new procedures, new chemicals, a new process, a new way of doing business. And you know what you do? You say, you know what? I haven't been satisfied with these other vendors. I'm just going to try this new guy. Because, hey,
What do you have to lose?
what have I got to lose? We call him up. He comes roaring up the driveway, jumps out of his truck, walks right up to your front door, throws a Molotov cocktail in, burns your house clean to the ground. He turns, he says, termites are gone, and he hands you a bill. That's what we've got in the United States. Total destruction.
Dang it, he
handing us
sawed
the
her
bill
up in half.
just because we thought he had a new idea.
What do you have to lose?
The tariffs were my turning point. In July of 2018, I'd had enough. The administration was beginning to pay farmers bailout money, I call it hush money, to keep us quiet while they continued to eviscerate our tried and true trading relationships. So I did this op-ed, and I led it with a riddle. I slept with Donald Trump because he said he loved me.
I love you more than anybody loved anybody. Are you ready? Right this way, baby.
When I got up in the morning, I realized all I got was screwed. When I went to tell the world about it, he offered me money to keep my mouth shut. Who am I? Am I somebody named Stormy? No. I'm the American farmer. That hit home. That hit home with people.
You say you wouldn't support him now, is that right?
And that set me off on a cable news frenzy, which resulted in the local Republican Party disavowing me as a Central Committee member. Right then, the war is on. The war was on. When I started to get out of step with the Republican Party locally and nationally, it was because of what I saw as populism beginning to creep in. So let me explain to you my view of what populism is. It's nothing more than a perennial search to find a villain to slay, with never a plan of what to do with the body. Who's the villain on the right? Anybody that disagrees with you. Our traditional trading partners, people with brown skin, are villains. Our traditional institutions, the FBI, our intelligence services, they're all villains on the right. This is the fallacy of populism. They're all about tearing down, but never about building up. And it's left us where we are today. And I'm going to fight it. I'm going to fight it to my last breath, because it's going to destroy us as a country.
We've had 3 years of trade wars. The farmer has working capital. A lot of them have burned through their capital at this point. Anyone that had a cushion, you know, it's said a farmer can survive 1 bad year, maybe 2 bad years. But boy, you get into the 3rd bad year, it gets really hard to keep going. And so that's where we were when COVID.
I'm saving with Liberty Mutual, Mom. They customize your car insurance. You only pay for what you need. You could save $700 just by switching.
It hit. And COVID was just another layer of injury on top of the farmer.
But just like many things, it's not what happens to you, what bad hand you're dealt, it's how you play it. It's how you respond.
I would say that an abomination, and that is really when they even had a response. I mean, they waited for months before they did anything. There were constant lies, deflections.
No nation is more prepared or more equipped to face down this crisis. As you know, we are rated #1 in the world. We're also helping other nations. Many other nations, we're helping them a lot.
Denials. I mean, we had Mr. Trump back in February saying, oh, like magic, we're going to be down to 0 cases. Each and every day, we're losing close to 1,000 Americans. The fact that the United States of America has handled this more poorly than almost any nation on earth is an embarrassment.
For agriculture, it's been a disaster.
China and some of those people are major places we export for. Yeah. If we can't get rid of it, we can't get rid of it in the United States, our market's going to be limited.
Agriculture has been built over time to be very, very efficient. Processing plants went down. That backed up all of the cattle, all of the hogs, left them on farms. There's no market. And then for farmers, no ability to sell your crops, which resulted in a collapse in prices, which then resulted in yet another agricultural bailout.
When farmers lose money and when the ag economy is disturbed and disrupted, it's not just the farmer who gets hurt. It's the equipment dealer, it's the Main Street business, it's the hardware store, it's the schools who lose tax revenue and have a hard time keeping their doors open or continuing to pay teachers. It really ripples throughout rural America. Many of American farmers are 2nd, 3rd, 4th generation farmers. So when a farm bankruptcy happens, it's not like losing your job. That's bad. You go out and find another job. It's about losing your way of life, and it's about losing the opportunity to pass that heritage on to your children.
Bankruptcies are up. Suicides are up across the nation. That's a canary in the coal mine that all is not good in agriculture. We can do it. It is can-do attitude across the board. But when you have an administration that has their foot on our neck and has created a situation where we're now part of the welfare state, farmers have no choice now but to play ball with their captor, and that's the administration. And they're stuck, and they know it, and they hate it. It's the worst thing you could do to the independent spirit of a farmer. I am angry. I am angry. American farmers, we don't run, we don't spook, and we don't hide. The fact that this administration left agriculture weak on trade and relationships with other countries makes me question where we're going to go from here. How are we going to rebuild these markets after the pandemic? How are we going to do that? Where are we going to go to get relationships? America should be revered in the world, respected and revered. Here's a news flash. We're not revered. We're tolerated. Because never forget, America first is America alone. In 15 or 18 years, I've got a grandson right now. And he's going to come to me and he's going to say, Grandpa, we're studying this in history. What were you doing then? I'm not going to tell him that I hid behind a safe fortress. I'm not going to tell him that I was silent. I'm going to tell him that I stood up. That I stood up and I spoke truth to power. That I stood up for what I thought was right.